Welcome to The People's Colloquy, a podcast that aims to pierce through the fog around us with the high beam of good conversation. My name is Ntutugo Anthony Ntlapo, aka Scare, IGN Nkalagata. Check me out on Steam and PSN. I'm hanging out today with my guy, Thabo.
Hi, Tumelo, Thabo, Frank, Bravo, back. Hello.
And we are sitting with a guest. He is actually one of Boholi's colleagues, an old friend of his. And he's primarily known for spannering aircraft and managing those who span the aircraft. But he's going to give us a little bit of info about him. We've got Tumelo, Tukz here with us today.
Tumelo, Mapoti, pleasure to be here.
What's good, Mike? How's everything?
Everything's all good. It's a bit tough, but we'll get there.
Hang in there. Today we are talking about Formula One, and in essence, Formula One is vast. We talk about FIA. There's questions about racing drivers. The question about the teams, the tracks, the strategies. Within strategies, there's tire strategies, weather. There's all sorts of goodies that are mixed into Formula One and the way that it works. But we're just going to start out with a general discussion about it. And the reason why we've got Tumelo with us is because he's a Formula One fanatic. Now, my question for you, Tumi, to start off with is, what got you involved in Formula One? What got you interested in Formula One? What's your history with the sport, and why is it that it means so much to you?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. And for me personally, as with most stories in life, it always starts with somebody influencing you. I had one, it was my father's friend, I think it was.
Yeah.
He used to come around on Sundays back, I was still in high school, I think. And he was a huge Formula One fan. And, he was just somebody who, for whatever reason, I was attracted to, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
He had this way about him that I looked up to him, and I just felt like he was somebody that I wanted to emulate.
Role model of sorts.
100%.
That's dope. That's dope.
Crazy cars, and he would come around, and that's how I started focusing on Formula One, because he attracted me to it, and he would go out and he would explain it to me, and I was young, I didn't understand it, but as time went on, I started understanding it more and more, and that was that, and I was good.
And that's one of the things about Formula One, which makes it so fascinating. There's so much to find out and so much to learn. Just when you think you understand a certain portion of it, it's like, no, that's just the name.
Yeah.
There's still more depth behind everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
The strategy element is what I like the most. Which element of racing and Formula One in general is it that touches you the most?
Personally, I think it's the way the Formula One drivers can be so consistent, being able to keep up with certain, they can achieve rather specific lap times. And you think it's something, how hard can it be? But when you think about, like you mentioned, fueling, you think about the tires, you think about the weight of the vehicle, the kind of the track conditions, and all those things come into play, and then they can still pull out specific, consistent lap times.
First off, okay, I get that. First off, I don't know anything about Formula One. I don't even know why you guys consider it a sport. and talking about consistency, obviously consistency goes with competition. I have a question, right?
Right.
Lewis Hamilton just did 100 wins, what was it called?
Yeah.
100 wins, right?
Yeah.
And no one has ever done that before, right?
100%.
Is the sport actually competitive?
There's a lot more that goes into Formula One than just the driver. It is a very, I think there's one phrase you like to use very well. It's very equipment dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And manufacturers in the past, 70 odd years that Formula One has been around, there has been those sort of moments where a certain team would dominate and another team would dominate. We look at Williams and how they are sort of always at the back of the grid right now, but for a very long time, Williams was a dominant force. So for them to have gone from those winning ways to be that far behind, and then you get teams like Ferrari who also, they've been in the Formula One ever since the beginning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, all teams have had their ups and downs. You get drivers that are on point on one weekend, following weekend.
So the ups and downs, is it because of the amount of research that the actual team puts in,
Yeah.
or is it the driver just being trash, or what?
No. Well, look, no Formula One drivers trash. Once you reach that upper echelon of motorsport, man, when you think about the amount of effort they get into, the amount of money they spend, the amount of training that they do to remain up at that level of motorsport, it is incredible.
Big team effort.
100%.
I think that's the core thing about Formula One, which can't be ignored, which is that it's all about the teams, and it's not just the team that's performing on the day, on the weekend.
Yes.
There's the team at the factory.
Yeah, that's what I was
That
asking
still
about
has to come
research and stuff, and
to
development.
the simulation,
Yes.
the guy
When you take into
crunching the numbers and all that.
When you take into consideration the fact that in effect the car is only built once.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
manufacturer
really?
only designed it once, yes. And now it must actually perform on every single track.
But then can I ask you a question quickly, talking about a car, right?
Yeah.
Say, I'm just going to talk about McLaren because of Lewis Hamilton,
Right.
right? or go to a Ferrari and talk about Schumacher. Those are the only people that I know, right? Or in that Alonso game.
Yeah.
So, McLaren, Hamilton is not the only driver there. Right? Who's the other driver again?
Okay. Yeah. So Hamilton's not my McLaren driver. He's not in.
What is he on?
He's with Mercedes.
Mercedes. Oh yeah, Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Yeah, he's with Mercedes. Guys, I'm learning here. Yeah, he's with Mercedes, right? There's another driver in Mercedes, right? So when they build a car,
Bottas, yeah.
do they? So say they get those two drivers, right?
100%.
And same level, competition and all that.
Right.
So when they build a car, they build the same kind of car per driver. The reason I'm asking this question is because why isn't the other guy getting 200 wins?
Yeah.
As I was thinking about competition.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very good question. Actually, and it's one of those controversial kind of topics. When they talk about the number one driver in the team, you mentioned that there's two drivers. When they talk about the number one driver in the team, generally they tend to build a car around that driver.
So the other guy is just wasting his time.
No,
Not necessarily.
not
It's about
necessarily.
driving style.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah, basically. So, not to say that, look, at the end of the day, the throttle is still on the right, the brake is still on the left.
Yeah.
You still got gear up, gear down, and the general settings for the vehicle are exactly the same.
There was
Just that-
a point a couple of years back. I think stumbled they wanted something online.
Right.
I don't know where Hamilton was. I don't want to do the whole McLaren and Mercedes again.
That's
But one of the guys who Hamilton was in the team with complained because again pit stop or whatever that they were a bit slower on him compared to Hamilton, that they were slowing him down.
Still Valtteri Bottas. Yeah, there was a time when maybe it was even the Rosberg era, Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton.
I think it was
Probably
Rosberg. There's a German kid, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So during that time, that's a bit different. I will have to admit. The Ferrari, the Mercedes-Benz team was split in the middle.
Okay.
Mercedes AMG Petronas team, they were split in the middle.
Mm.
It was just turmoil.
Yeah.
In that team. We generally, in all honesty, there was a left-hand side, which was Lewis Hamilton, and then there was the Rosberg side. I mean, the teammates themselves.
You asked a very important question.
Mm.
And it's a question that I love sports, but I still don't understand why Formula One is considered a sport, right?
Right.
I love sports,
Yeah.
and I have a story with each and every sport that I followed, the code that I followed. You asked Tumelo, where getting into it, I didn't even know.
No, dude. It's
Why?
an
What
old
is it?
story. And then the reason why I don't know much about it is because I fell off it.
Oh.
So I'll start basically at the beginning.
Right.
Growing up on the weekends, we would always have the Formula One on when it was playing that weekend, right?
Yeah.
Back when it was still available on SABC 3. So that's like primary school time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on the weekends, start off watching the qualifying on Saturday and then the race on Sunday. And through that process of endlessly, repetitively watching the events and seeing, okay, fine, these are the different countries that they're going to,
Mm-hmm.
this is the logistics behind it, this is what's going on with the different drivers,
Yeah.
the characters that are involved in there. I mean, you've got, I'm from the old school, Mika Sato,
Yeah.
Mika Hakkinen,
Yeah.
Schumacher,
Oh yeah, Schumacher.
David Coulthard,
Yeah.
Jarno Trulli. Like, those are the people that when you talk Formula One, that's what I think about. I think about the days when the TV was grainy and there was no HDI and all the other things that come with it. So as time went on, my love for Formula One is what introduced me to motorsports in general.
Okay.
and I moved from being very interested in Formula One to being more interested in rallying.
Yes, that's
And
right.
to be honest, my favorite driver in history in the world, it's Sébastien Loeb.
Yeah.
He's a world-class rally driver. He's raced at Pikes Peak. He does rallycross. He's versatile. I think he's competed at Le Mans. So that was my evolution. And then from there, when I was in high school, I went to motorcycles, which we're now looking at MotoGP, the Isle of Man. But basically, I've always been interested in extreme sports.
Yeah.
But when it comes to sports in general, to be honest, I'm more of a spectator than I am a fan of a certain team. So I won't be like, yeah, I supported McLaren way back in the 90s, and I'm still with McLaren, and I've got all the McLaren.
So you never had like a specific team that you were following?
Yeah, I was just following the sports and the narrative and the politics and the scheming and the cheating. Because one thing about sports, yeah, man, one thing about sports.
Can't we come up with a name for this rallying Formula One thing? I'm not comfortable with that.
Consider how fit these guys are.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Consider how strong these guys are. Consider mentally
the focus,
the fact that you have to work with a team in a coordinated way.
Yeah.
In order to achieve any objective.
Yeah.
There's no way that we can compare one sport to another and say one sport is not a sport because it's got a ball, and then this one they're working with cars and not balls.
Right.
It's all competition.
Yeah, sure.
You know,
fair.
And what made me come back to Formula One in the last few years was actually podcasting.
Okay.
And listening to the Formula One podcast and going back and remembering it. Oh my word! Kind of the politics here are so intriguing. And how they affect the technology that goes into cars in the future is also what is also quite fascinating as well for me.
And that's the one.
And and I don't know what happened. Actually, I know what happened. It was the episode with Lewis Hamilton, and there were things that he expressed in that episode that made me connect with him on some level. You know, there's certain struggles that he went through that I felt like that's the things that I felt as well at certain times in my life. And with that, I was able to then connect more deeply with the sport in general, and not just as a spectator.
And you do like, do you have a specific team that you follow, or you just a fan?
I think for me it's always been the underdog. Whichever team is not always quite there, but is closest to, you know, it doesn't help you always favoring the drivers who is winning, or the team that's always in the head, because then it gets you know, it becomes monotonous, it becomes boring. So for me with the Red Bull, it was quite easy, because you know, like I said, the same thing, they were behind and they were always catching up between the Ferraris, and now eventually they're taking me to Mercedes, you know. And myself driving a Honda, it just made sense, you know.
I see you put the Honda logo on the
that's my Honda design for the 2022 car.
Dope.
I just thought, hey man, you know, because I do graphic design as well.
Yes, of course, it's a 2022 car with the new shape, reducing the air. What are your thoughts about this new regulation that's coming out?
Oh man, I'm super excited.
Yeah?
I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm super excited because it means a whole new sort of a brand new
reality,
you know, set of rules, and everything's going to be neutral. You know what I mean? It's going to neutralize everything. Yes, you'll still find Mercedes probably still going to be in the forefront, or just in the front somewhere. I reckon Red Bull will also be doing very, very well. Mercedes-Benz and definitely Ferrari. We definitely need to watch out for Ferrari next year.
What are the regulations about?
The regulations basically? Oh no, let me not jump in. You're our guest. Please. Explain to what the regulations are all about.
So for a very long time, Formula One has maintained a certain set of rules that all the teams basically adhere to. So the wings, the length of the car, the width of the car, they've got a specific weight limit and those type of things. And it has reached a point where the cars look the same, a lot alike, but they are still very, very different. So next year, 2022 represents the first huge overhaul of rules for a very long time. I think it's been about 12 or 13 years.
Since
the last previous major.
So what the teams that they get like design freedom now?
No. unfortunately now. But that's
Alright.
that's the point now.
Okay.
It's a bit more limited. It's a bit more. Previously we used to have. I think it's in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
There was a whole new different set of rules. It was everybody was just doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Now we had Porsche was running a flat 6 or turbocharged. BMW was running a 4-cylinder turbocharged. It was funny enough the most powerful engine on the grid.
Mhm.
It was a 4-cylinder. There were teams still running V8s at the time, naturally aspirated, and they will start falling behind, and those type of things. So what then the FIA did, they started streamlining the rules, so that way the cars are, I don't want to say they're the same, but they follow a much more narrow set of rules.
But then again, with Formula One, another thing that I wanted to check, with sports, only sports it's a say it work around like
Sure.
or anyway, not a sports already. Their segment per like economic level about.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Formula One, I say sports is about rating like rich people, because you look even like where they host races.
Yeah.
It's places where not everybody can get there. Or even if you can get there, it's like Singapore, Monaco. Or
That's
those are like really
For me,
expensive
that's part of the
places.
beauty of Formula One, to be honest with you.
But why hasn't there ever been a thought of taking Formula One to places that are more
Okay. So
accessible
other than the
or
fact that
affordable to an extent?
Other than the fact that, if I can bring South Africa,
Yeah, sure.
there has been other African races. South Africa is one, Kailami, and I believe the other one was Morocco.
Yeah, but you see, those are like those are not consistent races. It's something that just happened. Like,
Yes,
like
unfortunately.
tasty kill, and then it
The one was in South Africa for a very long time.
Yeah,
so they raced in South Africa for
but then they bounced. Yeah, they bounced.
So listen, when did they leave?
In the 90s.
91, 92.
Early 90s.
Yeah, it was around about that time. You see, Kailami, it was for those people.
Yeah,
You see, so it was still for,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
those. I'm trying like even if
That's-
you're talking about Morocco is a place in our. Let's start here. Where was it in Morocco?
Oh no, I cannot remember.
But obviously, there, hopefully, comes to besides hopefully go Spain, where it's all about this.
Yeah.
So here's my question, Mahore. Hasn't there been a thought, or even from like you guys as fans, and followers of the sport?
Yeah.
Haven't you guys like thought, man, isn't that Formula One zama hore? You know what I mean? By hore.
I'm big. When you say that, it does actually touch a nerve with me, because one of the reasons that I actually bounced off Formula One
Yeah.
for a long time is because literally it was available on SABC for everybody to watch,
Yes.
and then it became available on DSTV, where you needed to have the most expensive package in order to have a look.
Yeah.
So I do have a gripe with it for that reason.
Yeah.
It does become very inaccessible, at least even though Premier League and certain other sports, you're only going to see them on DSTV.
Yeah.
There's still a taste of it in other places.
Sure.
But to be honest with you, it is about money. Formula One has always been about money. In order to compete,
So it is a rich man's game.
it is a rich man's game.
And a
no question
playboy's
about
game.
it. For
Look,
sure.
I mean-
But that's not all it is about,
Yeah.
because that's the front cover.
Sure.
What you can be sure about is that the engineers working within Formula One,
Sure. The back end.
they don't have those money bags coming in.
Yeah.
They might get great opportunities and build great careers within it, but not all of them are wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's the engineers and the people who are working behind the scenes, just like in every other business and industry, that are doing the major grind.
Exactly.
And that's also what illuminates business for me as well. If you look at Formula One and how it's run and how it's managed, it's matters of logistics. Your marketing determines your budget.
Right.
If you were able to sell your team effectively to the sponsors,
Mhm.
you were ahead of the game in terms of how much money you would have to invest.
Yeah,
Which is
sure.
something
So
that's changing now.
it's a matter of all of these elements coming together and mixing together in a way that we can see for ourselves, because a lot of what they talk about in the politics of Formula One are things that ordinarily in a business you wouldn't hear anything about at all.
Can I get Tumelo's
Yeah.
like where one I am with, based on what Anthony said, or based on the question that I asked?
Yes.
Yeah.
Trying to remember the question now.
Is it a rich man's sport? You know what I mean?
No,
Like,
definitely. Look, we're not going to talk about the drivers and
Yeah.
where they started. A lot of them were starting when they were 10, 11, 12 in college.
Hence I'm saying like,
And-
is it a, sorry to disturb, but
Yeah.
hence I'm saying, isn't it a rich man's sport? Because how much do those cutting cost?
Yes, that's what I wanted to, I want
Okay.
to mention
Alright.
right now. You know,
Great.
talk about Marco Schumacher, whose
Yeah.
own parents actually owned a racing kart track. You know, and it is unfortunate that is the case.
Yeah.
It is unfortunate because why? It is it's very equipment based.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that it's not like. Sorry, I'm not trying to belittle something.
You're not mocking me, right?
Where you can get a ball, practice, and then
Sure.
and then it's all
Sure.
good. You know, so because it's equipment based, a lot of money goes into developing a racing car, like it would a car, like it would any equipment that goes into any sport.
But what about the diversity within the sport?
Yeah.
Because it's I'm sorry that I'm going to say this.
Yeah,
It's like 99.9% white.
it is. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
if we speak about Formula One specifically, then yes, you're 100% correct.
Yeah, I'm talking about Formula One.
Yeah, no, and that is something that our driver, Lewis Hamilton, is actually doing. He's achieving that quite a lot. As we know, with the Racers One movement is one, and he's actually introduced a lot of what you would call internships. Through the Lewis Hamilton Foundation, I think it's called. And he's doing a brilliant job. He genuinely is. He wasn't the first one. Though no honesty to drive a Formula One car that was black. But he's doing a very good job in introducing Formula One to, in fact, let me put it this way, introducing Formula One to diversity rather than diversity.
So do you believe that it will diversify? Because I'm looking at, for diversity, like you're saying, the amount of money that goes into just building a car, or the amount of money that goes into developing a kid maybe from the age of 6 up until to a point whereby he's Formula One ready. I don't know how it works. But I'm just saying that I would assume there's a lot of money that goes in as a parent if you were to do that.
If you look at people like Lewis Hamilton himself, and something that a lot of people don't actually know, but Hamilton himself did not come from that.
Yeah.
His father was a business owner. He owned a business, and he eventually even went so far as to even sell the business to get him into content. And all he did from then on was he just pushed him, and he just pushed him, and he just pushed him, and he just pushed him. Lewis Hamilton's father did more for Lewis Hamilton than probably anybody else that has ever sponsored him. And that's the honest truth. And that's where he comes from. He does not come from money. He managed. His father pushed him, and that's how he got to where he is. And yeah.
Going back to the first black driver, I did share a podcast episode on our group chat.
You did, yeah.
With Willy T.
Yeah.
And Willy T is he never raced in Formula One, but he was the first one to drive, the first black person to drive a Formula One car.
Yeah.
In a test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a test, okay.
He drove a lot in the US. He competed in the Indy, but when he first came into racing, he went to Formula 3 in Europe, trying to make his way into Formula 1. And one of the tragic things is that what ended up undermining his attempt was running out of funds. And if you don't have people behind you who are going to help to push you, whether it's your family or a team or a sponsor who's going to go all the way,
and even the country itself,
then it becomes very, very tough.
And again, like you're talking about Formula 3. All those things. There was A1 at some point. I think it was funded by some rich guy out of Dubai or something like that. I don't know if you guys still remember A1.
Oh, the A1.
What happened?
The A1 GP was actually very clever. It was a way in which the countries would.
So they had a team as well.
Yeah, and they would have one or two drivers. I can't remember. Team. I think it was really one, and they went around the world. And it was very clever in the sense that it introduced. It almost opened up open wheel racing specifically, because remember we do still have other forms of racing all over the country. Okay, open wheel racing, especially on that international level, towards other random countries, including South Africa, including all these other very good countries. I like that. Exactly. But you know what I mean, and it became a way of showing that listen, there are other talents, there are other countries, there are other drivers that can.
So it was going towards that whole thing, like the question that I asked about diversity. Then what happened to it?
Money.
Yes, always.
If you can't make the money add up, you can't continue. If the sponsorships aren't there, they're not there.
Yeah.
If the tracks cost too much for you to book and do an event, and financially things aren't adding up the way that they need to, what else can you do but let it go? And whether that's the teams itself, like countries dropping out and saying, hey, you know what, we don't see the big benefit, so we're stepping away from it. Then that's just the reality, and it goes back to what I was touching on, which is that a big the business part of Formula One is all up in the faces of the consumers.
Okay.
It's not hidden in the background.
Yeah.
Like in soccer, where you hear about a big transfer, or maybe someone comes in and buys a team, and it'll be a big story. But we don't get to go into the boardrooms in here. We say, okay, so now what are your decisions?
Mm-hmm.
But in Formula One, you can often see the changes that occur when a change like that is made to a team.
100%.
And so you kind of get to see things playing off each other and see things evolving in a way that that is quite fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Williams team. I
Mhm.
didn't mention that. The Williams team was bought recently, I think, was it late last year or halfway through last year?
Mhm.
And you can see the change already building up into the team. They're becoming a little bit quicker. They're not right at the back like they used to
Yeah.
2-3 years ago, you know. But it goes within that investment and the amount of time you can spend in wind tunnels is something that a lot of people are not very familiar with. You know, it's not just you don't just build a car and just attach whatever you want. There's a lot that goes into development, engineering, and design. Yeah.
And actually, one of the things that the 2022 regulations are looking to address
Yeah.
is the matter of aerodynamics.
That's okay.
Now, please correct me if I'm
We're
messing up the wording and all the rest of it, you know. But my understanding is, look, the cars are going into the dirty air,
Right.
Yeah.
which makes it very difficult for them to overtake.
Oh, okay.
And now the 2022 regulations are aimed to
Address-
balance that a little bit by preventing the cars from giving off too much dirty air and making it a bigger disadvantage to be
Yeah.
behind.
100%.
And you can, I don't know where the slipstream comes in, which at a certain point is dirty in the corners, and then on the straights, then you can get into the slipstream, and then the dirty air factor doesn't come
It's
into
actually-
it. It's a
not-
lot more complicated
Very
than that.
complicated. The basic idea behind it is the following.
Mhm.
These cars don't weigh much, right? What you want in the corners is you want the downforce. The
Yeah.
downforce is what basically pushes the car
Yeah.
into the ground.
Yeah.
And that's what enables them to go around corners at such high speeds. Okay? But once you get into the main street, in essence, you don't want the downforce
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You want the car to be as slippery as possible. And by now standing there, like you said now, when you're coming very close behind another driver, he basically, the motorsport commentators like to use the word punching the air. You
Mm.
know, they are punching a hole through the air. So you're the one who's ahead of me, and you are the one that's basically cutting the air out. Then by my eventually just coming in very close behind you, I don't have the same effects that you
Mm.
have.
But talking about that, we'll go back to the mechanics. There's something that I don't want to forget, right? But I always run away from it. It's a good thing that I'm asking the question because I don't know anything about this thing, right? I've heard a lot of people talking like this whole gold thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, in other sports, I'm just saying about in Formula One. In y'all's case, as fans and followers
Yeah.
of Formula One, and you and then a pretty fair guy who doesn't have a specific team,
Yeah.
and you the lover of underdog.
Yeah.
Who's the man? Who's the GOAT? Is it Schumacher? Is it Hamilton? Who is it? Or there's an underdog that we don't know who's never won anything, but he's been consistent for all these years, and you consider him a GOAT?
There's one of my favorite drivers. He probably is in the running for being one of the GOATs, but might not be a popular choice. You definitely have to be.
Your GOAT doesn't have to be a popular choice. It's your position.
It's he's my guy
Yeah,
because
I,
the personality, the the way that people are saying he's a big yawn here. I'm seeing Boholi making the yawning face, which we are boring.
Never mind him, you must focus on the cameras.
For me, like, as Tumelo said, and from my perspective as being more of a spectator than a fanatic, it's definitely a matter of he was the underdog at that era,
Yeah,
and
so-
Schumacher was
Who's that?
Mika Hakkinen.
Okay.
He was the person who was basically taking it to Schumacher.
That's a Finnish guy,
consistently.
right?
Yeah, he's the Finnish racing driver. Yeah. So that's my personal that's my guy, And nowadays I would definitely have to say I'm in with Lewis Hamilton.
Right, there can only be one goal. Right?
You say-
You can have one goal. You can have goal one. And
No,
goal one
it's
and two goals.
different areas. It's different areas,
So you're taking it per
It's,
era.
it's different areas. In that time,
Yeah.
Can I just
Mika
comment?
Hakkinen, when I was really watching consistently,
Right.
but in this era, which is like 20 years later,
Okay.
Which is-
I mean, come on.
Nah, man, you gotta make a choice, bro.
It's 20 years
They
later.
don't fence.
No, it's fine. Can I
My
clarify?
current favorite driver is obviously going to be Lewis Hamilton because of how much he's achieved.
Okay, can I just
As
say
well
something?
as well as the fact that he's someone that we can look to and
No,
rate. I even mentioned it earlier on regarding the podcast episode. So I can't now pretend like it's the Finnish guy at one time that nobody knows, nobody cares about.
No,
you know?
I understand what you're saying, but my thing has always been this. I'm not forcing my thoughts on you or how I see things or how I like doing things.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. So it's two eras, right? You got this guy and you got this guy.
Mm.
But if you were to choose between the two, who's your guy?
Look,
Or maybe, like I said, who's your guy?
May I try to answer for Ed? I know why Anthony is struggling to answer that question.
Okay.
And the very simple reason is that the eras changed so much.
Mhm.
So many things changed when we went from one era to another era.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And it's very difficult to pick a specific driver to say that is my one and only. Because next 2022 rules is going to change so much.
Can I
That
just
it's going to.
The reason I'm saying this is this, right?
Yeah.
Let's forget the research and the mechanics and whatever, the engineering got out, right? Wait.
100%.
So we take the Finnish guy
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
at that particular era, we switch him with Hamilton. We take Hamilton to that era, we take the Finnish guy to this era. Will the Finnish guy have the same consistency or whatever that he was doing in that era now, or will Hamilton do what he's currently doing in that particular era? So we want to focus now on the actual skill. Let's forget let's forget all the other things.
No, for sure.
What makes you incredible in Formula One as a driver is also about how you handle your team politics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, those are dynamics that are going to be very difficult to measure effectively.
Yeah.
Would Hamilton have been able to get the kind of treatment that he is receiving now?
Can I just come
in
in?
that time?
I said let's forget about all the other things. Let's focus.
That as I said, that's one of the beauties of Formula One. There's no way that you can subtract
Anthony,
Lewis
I
Hamilton
understand.
and then Mercedes is still the best.
Anthony,
It's a synthesis.
Anthony, listen to what I'm saying. I'm trying to forget all the other things. I'm saying just focus on the driver. Say the politics are fine. Say don't bring all the other things. Don't say none of them got cheated on or whatever. Or you didn't have sex the day before the race. You know what I mean? Will he have, or at least half of the success, say Hamilton, that he is now in the particular era? Because that's why I said let's focus on only the driver and the skill that the driver has. Because you guys, you're a fan, right? You follow it, you check this and that and that and that. So you guys are talking about all the technicals there, punching what. You guys are knowledgeable. Will he?
You go back to the initial thing that I was talking about, Willy T.
Yes.
His skill as a driver was unquestionable.
Mm-hmm.
He was winning in Formula 3.
Yeah.
He
He won the
achieved.
championship.
He achieved in IndyCar.
Yeah.
Give me one.
Now,
Yes or no?
Now,
Give me a yes or no. Don't.
with that being said, the reason why he couldn't take it to the next level is politics.
I said let's take
It
all
is
those out.
money.
Let's take all
So
those out.
we can't. It's impossible to separate those
Yeah.
Anthony.
from the.
Look,
from
let
the
me-
game,
let
you know?
Let me help out. Let me help out.
Yeah, you
And it's so weird because I'm behind the scenes here, but I can
Anthony doesn't want to give an answer.
It's
You know,
nearly impossible.
waiting to keep you
It is nearly impossible. Let me explain why, and I understand what Anthony is saying, right? There's so many things that goes into what makes a driver a good driver, what makes him the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Mhm.
Again, we talk about an equipment-dependent racing.
Okay, let me just put it this way.
It's
Each and every sport is resource based.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Nobody's
So
disputing that.
and
But let's be honest with this.
Okay.
Okay, I have to do this. Because
Okay.
you guys are a lot more football than I am, right?
Okay.
I don't pay attention to football much.
Okay.
But can we be honest?
Mm-hmm.
Ball, score. That's it. Can we just
For instance, remember earlier we were talking about how football has changed. Actually, pretty much each and every sport has changed because of Moneyball.
Yeah,
I understand. So again, errors
But from a
might come
physical
in.
aspect,
From a physical aspect.
as a soccer player,
Yeah.
has it actually changed? No, it hasn't. You're running around a
It's
field.
much more technical. Yeah, sure, the basics are still there. That's what I'm saying. A driver
You know
has
what I mean?
basic driving skills. Brika,
Now,
accelerator,
with that, is
Jika.
the following. With Formula One,
Yeah.
the ball itself,
Yeah.
in theory, it changes.
Mhm.
The ball itself has changed.
Okay.
It's a bit heavier, it's a bit lighter,
Yeah.
it's more dynamic, it's
Yeah.
less aerodynamic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, all the changes
That's what
happen.
Formula One happens.
Yeah, all these-
But now it is so much more aggressive,
Yeah.
so much more extensive than
Yeah.
just
Okay.
those few.
So then give me your guy then.
Then it becomes
Then give me
very,
your
very
goat.
difficult.
Give me your goat. So give me your goat, or you guys agree on
There's no such thing as a goat.
There's no such thing as a girl. There's no such thing as a girl.
So then, what is the GOAT team then?
It's
Which team has been consistent from the point Tumelo or Motala?
There's only one team. No, I disagree.
Mercedes.
No, you explain your point.
Mercedes has got a legacy going way back. I mean, they were the first motor cars that were made.
No, you're talking about Formula 1.
And
was it Formula 1 motor cars?
Yeah, no, and that's where it comes from. That's the building block.
From the moment
and as cars and as road cars evolve,
Yeah.
a lot of it comes from Formula 1 technology.
Yeah.
So for me, I would say the greatest team, the greatest brand in motorsports is Mercedes.
So is it based on sentiment or wins as well?
Hey man,
it seems like it's based on sentiment.
for me, as a spectator, you know, I get to decide in the metrics for myself. I don't have to go and say, look, it's all of these details that make them the best.
Yes.
When I look at Formula 1 and I look at all of the brands and I compare it in my own mind, I say Mercedes is the top dog. Ferrari might have, you know, more wins statistically, but for me, it's Mercedes.
It's fine. Thank you, Mercedes. You go.
I have to disagree with you. Okay. For me, purely because of two reasons: Porsche and Ferrari. Okay. Porsche did race Formula 1, although they was more as an engine manufacturer than an actual team. Ferrari, however, has been in Formula 1 racing from the start. You understand? They've been in Formula 1 very, very, very first race. And they've been the only team that's been consistently in Formula 1 from the beginning. Okay. Then we bring up the Le Mans series. Ferrari again. You understand? The consistency is something that I mentioned a lot. The consistency in Ferrari is why I think that is by far the greatest motorsport. Not even just Formula 1, across the board.
So that's a GOAT team. That's a GOAT team.
Two is about it.
There's no way.
So
No, I'm with you on that.
So you're still with
There is something that.
Anthony, are you still on your Mercedes-Benz?
No, man, I'm with Mercedes-Benz. I'm with Mercedes-Benz.
So
If it's sentiment, it's sentiment. If it's not sentiment, then it's fact.
Yeah.
Well, that's what sports is all about. I mean, we can't go into sports talking about how,
So we should only support. We still have us and our friends.
Yeah,
we should not support the fans. We still have us and our friends.
That's cool, right?
Can't case the cheese.
So people were like, if Thierry Henry can just come back to Arsenal, everything will be fine again. Everything will be great.
Yeah,
So,
we still have us and our friends. Sir.
Yeah.
no, the other thing that fascinates me about racing in general is the gamification of racing and how well it translates from being an activity that you watch to something that you do in terms of gaming as well.
Sure.
You know, and that's also it's one of the things that kind of brings in that synthesis. As I mentioned before, I'm a big rally fan, but it wasn't until I actually looked at all my rally games and I realized that going all the way back to the PlayStation 2, I had a gang of rally games that I hadn't really. Okay, I'm a rally fan. You know.
No, for sure, and I agree with you 100%. You know, motorsport, when it comes to the gaming side of it, it is absolutely incredible. It is so the best. I think for me, the experience is you feel so in tune with it. You really feel like this is me driving. You know, I used to play in Assetto Corsa, Project Cars 2, Forza. I did the Gran Turismo thing and PlayStation. So you know what I mean. And there are moments. I'm not gonna lie to you. There are moments when you are driving and you start becoming consistent. And you're looking at your lap times and you start realizing that every lap. I remember I was telling Mr. Willy a few weeks ago about my experience when I was driving on the Japan track, you know, and Suzuka, and Assetto Corsa. And man, I was pushing, and there was just this one car ahead of me, and I was just taking out maybe 2 tenths. But you know. And every single time I cross the line, I look and I'm thinking, I'm catching this guy. I'm catching him. And the whole time, every single moment, through every lap, through every corner, I started realizing where his weaknesses are, where his strengths are, and where my strengths are compared against his. You know what I mean? And that's when you start to realize how much work goes into driving the Formula 1.
It really,
how much work
the games really connect you with what those guys are up to.
Exactly. You start feeling the weight. You know, that game's on point. You start feeling how the
I started playing it.
The brake pads
Bags.
almost up, I think, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was catching this guy, and I started realizing exactly where I could overtake him, and I did the move. But at that moment, when I did that move, the adrenaline, I mean, my heart was pumping.
Yes, it's like it's real.
It really felt real.
It really feels real.
Genuinely.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you a question. Elia said something very important. I don't know why I didn't ask the question there.
Yeah.
He said they built a car for that particular season, right? They don't build like multiple cars for one driver. They build one car and then that's
Okay,
it for the
alright,
driver.
maybe I failed to explain. What I mean by car, I don't mean the physical element.
Oh, okay.
I mean the
Right.
design, engineering,
Design,
and
okay.
everything is still in CAD and whatever. But they submit those drawings to FIA
okay.
or those specs to FIA, and then they need to maintain that throughout the year. Yes, but it is something.
But you guys, this FIAs and stuff, you guys must explain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is an action.
the FIA is as much a part of the racing as anything else because the regulations have got a big impact
Yeah.
on what can actually be done.
Mm.
The rules that the racing drivers follow on a given weekend, the rules that the drivers and the manufacturers need to follow in relation to how they do pit stops, how they develop the cars, how they build the cars. They decide the budget. So it's almost like a referee who's not just a referee, but is also there doing things to manipulate how the game is ultimately going to shape up because they want to get safety
Yes.
and maximize viewership and audience numbers and make it
also
and
preventing
make it
cheating.
make it competitive. But actually, before we carry on about the FIA, let's talk a bit about scandals and controversies in Formula One. What's your favorite controversy in Formula One, my guy Tukz? Favorite might not be the right term.
Also many. It has to be Crash Gate.
Crash Gate. Tell us about
it. It was Singapore 2017, I think it was 2018, with Renault.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, this is a crazy one. They actually had one of the drivers cause a safety car. I think it was Singapore, yeah, to cause a safety car by intentionally crashing. Thereby, the team that was following behind, I think the driver was Alonso, was it at the time? I think it was Alonso, I can't remember.
Must be wrong guy.
Look at it right now. I think it was, right? I think it was Alonso, yeah. And what's that guy's name that Renault chief, Tori,
Oh, Flavio.
That's it.
Flavio
He's
Briatore.
the one who instigated the whole thing. And when he came into the pits, so basically he caused an accident, and then safety car came out, and that's the time when the other driver went in and pit stop, and he came out first place. It was incredible. I mean, nobody really noticed what had happened until only years later, as the story came to fold out, that they realized that was actually intentional.
My favorite controversy, my favorite little bit of cheating. Was it cheating? Was it not cheating? Were they just being clever and a bit slow? It's the matter of the third brake. It has inside. I can't recall which team it was, but basically they had a brake on the inside.
Yes.
A third brake on the inside, which would allow you to add a little bit more braking power onto the left or the right hand side,
Yes.
which will then allow you to tighten the corner a little bit more. And the suspicion actually came about for the first time when people were seeing other cars going past the corners. And the wheels weren't slowing, the brake pads weren't glowing.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
But now this particular car, as it was taking the corners, the brake pads were glowing. And then everybody was like, what's going on here? What's going on here? This is very, very unusual. And obviously they're getting a big advantage because they can operate the car in a more dynamic way. And it wasn't until a photographer actually sneakily went and took a picture of the inside of the car, and they saw the second brake pedal. And then they were like, oh, okay, so this is what they're up to, and then it got banned. So it's one of the matters, it's one of the stories that talks about the research, the planning, the implementation, working together with the team, because obviously they had to go and test all of that first before they brought it to the racetrack. The secrecy, the cloak and dagger. Always trying to strategize your opponent not only on the track, but in the pits
and
At the pit wall,
at the
in the
factory.
engineering center,
Yeah,
at the factory.
And what I wanted to ask was like, talking about the cheating. Cheating happens all over, right? And I understand there's those regulations and stuff, but it still happens.
Yeah.
How often does it happen?
Very
Formula
wrong.
One.
Very wrong.
Not
I-
Because you know why I'm asking. Actually, let me just.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking, it's a good thing that you spoke about cheating, right? And I want to go back to the actual car. That not necessarily one, it's just the design. If it gets written off, they'll just work on the particular design.
Yeah.
After working on the design or before the race, does the Formula One itself come and inspect the car and say, okay, this is the car?
Yes.
But then how did this happen? And how often does cheating happen?
Okay, so this was obviously what Anthony is talking about, something that happened many years ago. It was
okay.
before the FIAs really started becoming more stringent on
Okay.
the designs of the cars.
Okay.
I spoke about how back then the rules and regulations were a lot more relaxed.
Mhm.
You know, manufacturers could build anything. The cars could look, they would look, I mean, there was a time when there was a team called Terrell, if I remember correctly. They had a 6-wheeled car.
No. But then the question is, like we said, before we.
But the idea behind it was, then it wasn't as stringent because the rules were so relaxed that there was no specific set of rules that the teams would follow. So that's why something like that they could get away with. Why? Because it's not something
No
that they would
inspections.
use.
But how often? My question: how often does cheating happen? And do they actually get caught? Is there a time? apart from
Another
those-
team, a team might cheat and gain a certain advantage.
Yeah.
And then the other teams will be like, but hold on.
Okay.
We've done our maths, we've done our science,
Yeah.
and there's no way that this guy is doing this legally, getting this much performance out of it.
For sure.
So they will then, like in the case of the Ferrari situation,
Mhm.
they will then submit to FIA and say, look here,
Okay.
we think that A and B and C is going on with this specific car,
Right.
and we want you to investigate in that direction. And then the FIA will then, take that up and take it seriously because they've got an arbitrage and committee.
But how often does it happen? How often? Is it something that happens a lot?
If I
or-
can answer that.
If you're cheating and not making it work and not making it help you win, then you might be cheating and coming second last. No one's gonna really say these guys are up to something.
So
But
it
if you're
happens a lot.
cheating and you right
Does it
up
happen
in
a lot?
front, I think it's
More than anything,
it's part of motorsports in
it is
many ways,
difficult
to be
to call
honest.
it cheating because really all it is it's usually a matter of either finding a loophole in the rules and regulations or just basically being able to just build something a little better than the other team has already. You know what I mean? And then what then has to happen is it's something that is new that the FIA has never thought about, the other teams have never thought about, and now because it's something that's completely new, then it becomes wait, hold on, how are they doing this? How are they cheating? And how are they so much faster in the straights or in the corners or in the braking than all the other teams? Then it becomes out
An investigation.
And then you do have.
So it's kind of reactive.
Okay, reactive. Okay, cool.
Mm.
And then you, like, we're about to wrap up. What is, I understood, I heard you when you started, how you got into it, your father's friend,
Yeah.
and all the cool cars and
For
everything,
sure,
and all
for
that,
sure.
and all that, and all that. But what is, because sports means something to other people, because remember, other people use sport, others they use it as a pastime,
Yeah.
others they take it really, really serious.
Right.
Others, they take motivation out of sports. Like I know, remember the South Africans told me that the best way to learn leadership is through sports because you meet people that you don't know.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you have to conform to whatever that the team says you must do. I don't feel about what they or not.
Yeah, no, for
You know what I
sure.
mean?
I
So
think-
what is it that you've taken and all these years that you've been watching Formula One or racing or whatever,
Yeah.
what is it you've taken out of it? And what does it mean to you?
For me, is the technical aspects of it. I've always been one person who's always been very technical minded. I understand how an F1 car works, more than just the fact that it's 4 wheels, brake, engine, gearbox. You know, I understand how the car works. I understand the dynamics behind it. I understand the driving and why a certain driver will drive so fast for so many laps and then suddenly it's not that fast anymore. Why Williams is so good in the rain. Why is, you know what I mean? And all these type of things are what fascinated me about Formula One cars in general. You know, and I think for me, I've always been excited by as I sound a bit crazy, but sometimes the crashes can be a little bit exciting.
Wow.
I know, but they can be. They can get quite exciting, and you always ask yourself questions.
Engine, man.
No, I know that's the unfortunate thing, and then
Okay.
it's where it becomes a bit, you know.
It adds that drama and that flavor to a race as well.
Correct. And but seeing the cars and the kind of performance you're able to extract out of something. I mean, the engines are tiny. 1.6 V6. It's a very small engine, but the amount of performance they can extract out of it.
Yeah.
And yet, this car is so fast, and the drivers drive so close, and they're within 2-3 seconds on a 5-kilometer lap. I mean, it's incredible. And they're on the brink. I mean, they're literally on the edge, on the very edge of the limit.
Yeah.
And then they lose it. And then, you know, you think about how close he was and how he could have, how he should have, and how he should have probably have done this rather than done that.
And in a game, when something like that happens to you, it hits you on an emotional level.
Yes.
And you can only imagine in real life
You're interesting.
how much it would hit you.
What's your take on it?
My take on that is it's really the interplay between all the different forces that are happening in Formula One. Whether it's the FIA coming up with new rules, seeing the way that different teams adapt, seeing who complains a lot and who just gets it done, seeing who is actually dominating and how it is that they're dominating. And the interesting thing, as you mentioned, you have the number 2 driver who's driving the same car, who's not extracting the same performance. But the number 1 driver has actually not only outperformed on the racetrack and in qualifying, he's outperformed with the relationships with the teammates and the rest of the team and the engineers. When you're thinking and when you're planning, are you thinking and planning with him at the forefront? And what are you doing to make sure that you're going to be at the forefront and not the other driver? So when it comes to a sport and the question of whether or not it's a sport, to me, it's a matter of absolutely yes, because these guys are competing. They're playing 3-dimensional chess. They're not just playing. They're not just getting into the car, start it up, and then run and then go home and relax. No, it's endless pushing, endless exercising, endless maneuvering with the people around you, endlessly pushing yourself.
And the mind games.
And the mind games, and it's just a matter of all of those things coming together to create something which is entertaining on multiple levels, which can have you thinking about it even when you're not watching it. In a way that most other sports don't really make me engage with them that deeply. I kind of, like I always say, I used to be a big time Manchester United fan, but at the end of the day, I don't have shares and I wasn't really emotionally invested. But I also would not want to endlessly go back and keep watching the games, But when it comes to Formula One, whether it's highlights, whether it's the replay packages, whether it's people talking about the crash controversies for engineers, but even though I'm not like one team is one team and I love this team, I'm going to buy the shirts, I'm going to buy the top, I'm going to buy this and buy that, and put the Mercedes sticker on my Toyota, and do all these kind of things. The stories, the narratives, the personal interplay that happens between drivers on the track when they crash each other. I mean, when 2 teammates crash each other, how bad have things become in the politics for that to eventually happen? The last thing you want to do, the cardinal sin is 2 teammates crashing each other. That's the worst case scenario that a team can face. Both cars are now out, the weekend is over. And when that happens, there's a whole lot of backstory, which is usually very, very intriguing to find out about. But
so
closing out, there's just one more thing that I wanted to ask Tukz about, which is you are working also in the media space as we are. Tell me a little bit more about where your direction is, what you want to do in relation to being creative, from creating content or creating pieces of art like this. What is it exactly that what else are you up to? What else can we let the people know to check out from you?
No, thank you very much for that question. Welcome to digital media. Just want to see what space I can fit into. I want to start doing podcasts. I want to focus more on motorsport in general, from my perspective as a young Black African. As well as just I want to do some posters, man. I want to do posters, you see all the time on Instagram, Pinterest, you see posters that come up, just digital ones obviously. And they're introducing new races coming up, and so on and so forth. And that's what I really want to look into. And then hopefully every now and then a review or two of a previous F1 will be. I'm hoping to get into that.
You also mentioned when we had a chat about doing reviews on equipment.
Yes, peripherals.
Where's that for you? And I know that you're also big into tech. So there's the car thing, there's the gaming thing, there's the peripheral thing, there's tech in general, and then that's before we even talk about the fact that you work on cars and service cars. Have you ever considered capturing that to share out with the people?
I did, but I think for me that is something that I do for myself. I think the mechanical aspects when it comes to cars is just me trying to save money. If I can do it, I mean, how can it be? So that's not really something that I want to get into. It's just something that I do because I can do it.
Yeah.
But I want to push myself and do things that I'm not comfortable with yet.
Oh, nice.
Because that's if you're gonna be doing about cars, and everybody does cars, and I want to take it one or two steps further, man. That's why I want to do digital media. Maybe we can get to a bit of animation. We'll see. You know what I mean? And peripherals. You spoke about computers and gadgets and those type of things. I love gadgets. I'm a big gadget freak.
I know. I think there's
and worst of all, doing things myself. It's something that I'm
DIY guy.
Yeah.
No, my dude. I think we've got a lot more in common than I suspected. And I think we're going to be working together a lot in the future.
I'm glad to.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Tumelo.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And that's it from our side.
Yeah.
Check us out on all the various platforms. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram soon. We'll be uploading this, and we hope that you all enjoy. Thanks very much for watching.
Alright, cheers everyone. Again, we learn all the time. Kenny may not know much about Formula One or what do you call it, GP, motocross or whatever the thing is. And that's the beauty of what we do, right? Hence we had said that we want everybody to be part of it. Good Tumelo now is here. You can be here too. We're expanding. Whatever idea that you have, you can contact us, like I think I just said, on all those platforms. And then you can send, you can chop it up. Cheers.